All right, welcome everybody. We are live. It is another edition of Deconversion Stories, and today I have the pleasure of talking with Mr. Andrew L. Seidel. You probably have heard his name, especially when the FFRF gets brought up, because Andrew is a lawyer for these guys, and he does constitutional type stuff. And if you guys don't know, which I'm sure you probably do, most of you guys do, because I've spouted this thing off a few times, Andrew has just released a book called The Founding Myth. And down below, I have a link there where you can grab yourself a copy as well. And I also have the audio book too, which I listen to while I'm at work sometimes. And then I just pick up where I left off with the book here. And by the way, Andrew, the way that this is done, I like it because it's got that old school book feel to it. Like the pages kind of, that old world book kind of feel to it. And it smells like a book.
That's called a decal edge.
Is that what that is? Okay.
Yeah, and you're right. It's the old school. It's from the way they used to actually manufacture and construct books.
Yeah, for sure.
And I was really excited about it when I found out the publisher was going to do that because I'm a total book nerd.
Okay.
I'm a bibliophile. I've got a collection of signed books from Hitchens and Dawkins and all the. Anyway, yeah, total nerd over here. So.
I got Seth Andrews to autograph his No Sacred Cows book.
Very nice. Cool. Very nice. Big fan of Seth.
Oh yeah, and he was fantastic when I had him on too. It's funny because the people that were watching were like, just listening to you two guys is like the most soothing voices on the internet. Which was funny. But anyways, what I do here, Andrew, is I talk to people about how and why they kind of left beliefs and stuff like that. And I know, talking with you, that you didn't have too much of a religious upbringing, but I'm sure there were people that were influencing you. And how did you deal with that kind of thing? And did you ever consider becoming religious at any point?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely asked a lot of the questions that religion purports to answer. Right. And I spent a lot of time considering the answers that religion supposedly has for those questions. But I didn't really ever find any of them convincing. I think probably when I was in high school was when and early college was when I was doing most of that questioning. But, in terms of my upbringing, it was really pretty non-religious. I think I was pretty lucky.
Right.
My mom she encouraged me to go to temple with my Jewish friends, to go to Catholic Mass with my Catholic friends, to check out, the Protestant church. And we kind of did some things on Christmas and Easter for the music. And
sure,
I have a vivid memory of going to church sometime in the late 80s at Christmas, like one of those midnight Mass things, but not Catholic. I think it was Episcopalian. And this was the time of like the big hair. Women were into the very big hair.
Oh, yes.
The Aquanet spray and all that stuff. And the woman's hair in front of me caught on fire.
Oh no.
I was not responsible for it. I have a vivid memory of it. But anyway,
how did that happen?
There was candles all around, or people were holding them, and it's one of those things, those memories where you can replay it like and frame for frame,
Sure.
But that wide experience that my mom encouraged early on, it made it very clear to me that rather than one of these religions being right, and their only real claim to being right is I'm right because I say I'm right.
Yeah,
you were all wrong. And so, they all have this mutually exclusive truth claim, and it became pretty obvious to me that the answer was, okay, none of you guys have the answer.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, when I grew up Jewish too. So when you mentioned you went to your friends' temples and stuff like that, I was actually born to Christians, but put up for adoption because my birth father's mom, they're staunch Catholics, so it was a big no-no to have kids out of wedlock, right? So I was raised Jewish, and all the way through Hebrew school, I remember questioning all these crazy stories I'm hearing, these biblical stories, like how is this possible, kind of thing, right? And I got kicked out quite a bit, but
yeah, I mean, and with that kind of story, I can understand why you're interested in other people's stories. That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I found them, by the way. They found me in 2000, and we've been close ever since, right?
Well, that's great.
Just spent Christmas with them, and unfortunately, my biological mom and one of my biological sisters have passed since meeting them. So, I'm just thankful that I got to meet them and have.
Yeah, that's a fascinating story. You talking about growing up Jewish. I actually, apparently, according to my mom, after I went to one of my friend's bar mitzvahs, I came home and immediately said, "Mom, I want to be Jewish because that's the best."
Many of my friends said that too after I had mine.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I mean, it was a lot of fun.
And the gifts. I mean, I had a room full of gifts.
Yeah, it was really impressive. But for me, it was really easy, and I am also, having had that easy deconversion, or not even had to have had a deconversion. I'm really in awe of people who have made that deconversion on their own. Especially people like Dan Barker, who's the co-president of the Freedom from Religion Foundation, or Jerry DeWitt. Preachers who they're not just their family and their social support, but their entire livelihood depends on maintaining this belief. And the fact that they have the intellectual fortitude and courage to pursue truth, wherever it leads them, is to me, it really is awe-inspiring.
For sure.
And I am basically, all I want to say there is I stand in awe of people who are able to do that. And a question that I really ask myself frequently is, if I hadn't been lucky and I hadn't been free from any type of indoctrination or coercion or even peer pressure, would I have had that intellectual fortitude and strength and courage? And honestly, I'm not sure I would have. I obviously would love to think that I would, but it really is amazing that people can do this.
Do you find maybe you're concerned that if that hadn't happened, is it because you're fairly easily convinced on things, or?
No, I don't think I am. I'm pretty skeptical by nature.
Yeah, me too.
To me, it's such an amazing thing to be able to do, especially when, like Dan or like Jerry, you are just so dependent on maintaining that belief. And we see how easy it is for so many people to maintain that belief. One of the reasons that I go around the country and I talk about these issues. I talk about the work that the Freedom from Religion Foundation does. I talk about keeping state and church separate and atheism. And one of the questions that I get asked without fail is, well, what can I do to help? And the answer that I give to people always is, look, you've got to come out of the closet. If you are able to do so safely and come out of the closet and say, I am an atheist and I don't give a damn if you think less of me because of that, I think you have to do it. I actually believe that we have a duty. We who can do it have a duty to do so for the few people who really are unable to do so. The kids who are stuck in a dangerous home situation if they were to come out of the closet, something like that. And so, I used to say it's important for us to do that, but now I actually believe we really have a duty to do that if we can do so safely.
I think so too. Yeah, safely. That's the key word, I think, right there. Yeah. I have spoken to a couple of ex-Muslims that didn't want to go on camera because they're still in the area where it could be a danger or hazard for them. So,
and those are the people who we need to be doing it for, because we need to normalize non-belief. And I'm an attorney who I litigate issues like this for a living. This is our goal, and I will tell you, we are not going to win this fight in the courts. We are going to win this fight with demographics. Okay. If you look at the numbers, I mean, we are definitely winning right now, but we haven't won. And this is another reason it's so important.
Yeah, I agree. And I always encourage people to do it as well. Now, as you're saying, we're not winning in courts. When you say that, because I've heard that you have won some.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Things, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, we do win a lot of cases in court. Our overall FFRF's overall record from the beginning of FFRF being founded till now is something like we win 3 out of every 4 cases we take, and that includes taking a case and settling it before a court could even decide on it, or taking the case all the way to the Supreme Court and the Supreme Court deciding in favor of us. So 3 out of every 4 there, but things are getting really rough out there for our side in the federal court system. And there are,
because of the recent government.
That is one very good reason. Donald Trump is appointing Christian nationalist judges to the federal bench. They have lifetime appointments. About 1 out of every 4 judges on the federal bench now is a Donald Trump appointee. And they were chosen for their extreme positions on things like the separation of state and church, and their belief that we need to redefine religious liberty, to weaponize religious liberty.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. It's an alarming time to be a lawyer doing this, and we are going to see a shift. So I haven't looked at the stats lately, but at the beginning of 2019, on January 1st, 2019, the previous 3 years, FFRF was 16-2 in cases that we had been taking that had gone to a final disposition. We were on a really high winning streak. And that I know that's been changing more and more over the last year, and it's going to continue to change as these judges have a bigger and bigger impact.
Wow. So what would you say were a couple of your favorite cases?
Oh, wow. You know, one of my favorite ones didn't actually end up going to a decision, but there was a family in Georgia who reached out to FFRF, and the teachers in their school system had been forcing the kindergartners, first graders, and second graders to pray before they went down to lunch. Yeah. And I mean, these are really young kids, and normally we're able to, that's such a clear violation. That's so far out of bounds, and everybody knows it's a violation, that we thought we would be able to stop this with a letter, which is normally what we seek to do, right? Like, I actually don't want to drag a public school system into federal court. Sure. I prefer to solve this and get them to stop violating kids' religious freedom rights without having to go to court. So the first step we always do is we try to send a letter and say, hey, you guys really got to stop this. Here's what the law says. You know, don't make us take you to court. And the school district doubled down, and they said, no. The teacher has a religious freedom right to tell these students to pray before they go down, which is...
That's not how it works.
That is correct, Neil. So we ended up suing, and it was a great outcome. I mean, the teacher got fired. We got the family some money so that they were actually able to, deal with the fallout from this, which is not always the case and not why we take these cases. But it really, and the teacher actually ended up, both the teachers are no longer working in the school district, and the principal who was allowing it to happen got smacked around, not literally, as well. I mean, I guess the answer to that is the cases that I tend to like the most are the ones where I really get to help people who have really been impacted. I had another case like that, and I often open some of my talks telling this story. And this was another family down south, a mom named Christine. Her kids were in the public school system. And the youngest kid came home and said, I got in trouble today in English class. We were told to write stories, and I wrote Xmas, Xmas instead of Christmas. Sure. And the teacher pulled me up in front and said, why are you Xing your Lord and Savior out of his own birthday? And she said, and I tried to deal with that, and they said that, well, your son can write Yule instead of Christmas or something along those lines.
Saturnalia.
Yeah, and then something else happened again, where her older son was told to copy lines from the Bible. And he said, well, I don't want to copy lines from the Bible. That doesn't seem right. Christine complained, and the school switched it to say, okay, well, you can, the teacher will allow you to copy lines from something else. And the teacher picked Dante's Inferno, quote, so that you know what awaits kids like you.
Oh, wow.
And so at every turn, the school's not doing the right thing, and it's escalating. And eventually, she had to pull her daughter out of school. Her daughter was assaulted in the bathroom and called a witch, and her head was slammed into a concrete wall. And then it culminated with her youngest son being surrounded on the playground. And 4 boys told her son, they were going to cut off each of his fingers and toes and hang him by his neck until he confessed that Jesus Christ was Lord and Savior. And
they weren't Christian, I imagine.
Yeah, I mean, and this is this was happening in a public school system. The public school was not doing anything about it. Now, my instinct there is even that I wanted to sue right away, but that's not what FFRF does. That we do try to operate and in this particular manner, and we were able to get that violation stopped. The superintendent went to every classroom in the district and talked about bullying and shut this down in the school. According to Christine, really did a good job of fixing everything. So she was thrilled with that, and I was happy for her. It's those cases where we actually have this huge impact on people's lives, and it really does make a difference that I love the most.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, I mean, there are other ones that are a lot of fun. I love to write. As you can imagine, the book. And so, we weigh in on Supreme Court cases, and I get to write a lot of those briefs. There's a Supreme Court case that's being argued before the court on January 22nd coming up. It's called Espinoza versus Montana Department of Revenue. It sounds super boring, but it's actually a really critical case for religious liberty and for the separation of state and church. Essentially, if it goes the wrong way, every taxpayer in the country could be forced to fund churches and religious education. Very, very alarming. It would give churches and religious schools a right to access taxpayer funds. So that would flip our notions of state church separation and religious liberty entirely on their head. So I wrote the brief for FFRF for that with some help from the other really talented attorneys here at FFRF. American Atheists, the Center for Inquiry, the American Humanist Association all signed on to that brief. And I really, I love doing that kind of thing too. And I would encourage people to go read it because I try not to write like a lawyer. I kind of
it doesn't come across that way, really. So
I hate the way lawyers write for the most part. So it's 3,500 words when the word limit's 9,000, which is unheard of. And it should be a brief that everybody watching this right now could pick up and read and understand why this is such a critical case and what the danger is of the court deciding this the wrong way.
Right. So that's the big one that you guys are working on right now, because I think somebody asked me in the chat what your big one currently was.
I mean, that's the most recent big one that I've been working on. We have, and those amicus briefs are, the word amicus is Latin for friend, so that they're friend of the court briefs. So you're not actually a party to the litigation, but they are important and they can be influential. But right now we have about, I think it's 13, it might be 14 cases going right now, which is at any given point, FFRF is litigating between 10 and 15 cases. And then
really?
I already mentioned a few of the complaints that we handle that didn't go to court. We get about 4,000 to 5,000 state church complaints every single year. And we try to address most of those without going to court, with letters or with phone calls or even emails sometimes. So
sure,
that's a typical way that we operate.
Well, yeah. I mean, why not try that first before having to drag everyone into a courtroom?
Yeah.
An interesting question. My friend, Best Name Ever, asked if any of your clients have ever shown up there saying that they've been sent by the ACA or the ACA shows or anything like that. Because I often hear them mention to talk to you guys about something specific, right?
Yeah, we do get a lot of referrals, and not just from the ACA, but from, everywhere. And even some of the other bigger groups will send people our way, because FFRF's legal department is the biggest that does this. We have 10 attorneys on staff full time, which makes us larger than a lot of the other groups put together. And our whole setup is designed to handle that volume of complaints coming in. I mean, last year we sent out over 1,000 letters, for instance, on different violations, and that's a pretty typical year for us. So it's not just doing that too. We're also constantly writing op-eds to try to shift public opinion, writing law review articles to get more on the scholarly side of things. So there's all kinds of stuff that's going on here. That's
great. So what is it that you write that you think could actually change someone's opinion on this sort of thing?
I mean, that's why I wrote The Founding Myth. That really is what I wrote the book for. I don't have a copy to hold up. Oh,
there's one behind you. I can see it up there.
I can't figure out how to point in the camera.
I've got one here anyways. If we ever need to pull it up, there you go.
I mean, that really is what I was doing here. I think there have been a lot of previous books that have done a really good job of trying to correct the historical record, right? They've offered these gentle corrections to the Christian nationalists, saying things like, here's what history tells us, here's what the founding fathers actually meant, here's what they actually said. But we are not in an age where correction is enough. Simply getting your facts straight is insufficient. Right. So in the founding myth, I do that, but then I take the next step. Right. The founding myth goes on the offensive. It is an assault on the Christian nationalist identity. Not only are the Christian nationalists wrong, their beliefs and their identity run counter to the ideals on which this nation is founded. They are fundamentally un-American. And so that is, I think, if our side adopts that argument and understands it and uses it, I think we win. And that is, so to me, the most important thing that I've written, hands down, is that book.
Yeah, and it's like I was saying before we got going, I'm about 3/4 of the way through actually physically reading it, and I also listen to it as audiobook too, so I get to double down on all that stuff. But I find a lot of times that no matter how much we'll say evidence that you bring to someone, what you think isn't true, a lot of times if they're quite deep into it, they will double down on what they think is right. How do you combat something like that?
Well, I mean, and that's kind of what I'm getting at in the book. Again, it's facts are often not enough. What we really need are better arguments, and that's what I try to do in the founding myth. And the central theme is that it's not just that America was not founded as a Christian nation and that Christian principles didn't influence the United States' founding. Sure. It's something actually different than that. It's that Judeo-Christian principles or Christian principles are fundamentally opposed to the principles on which this nation was built. Yeah. In other words, Judeo-Christianity is un-American. And that argument is a gut punch to the other side, and it was intended to be. And getting things like that is going to get their attention and get them to stop and one, listen, but also it goes to the heart of what they're trying to do. If you've been paying attention,
I've tried,
in the last 5-10 years, the goal is fairly obvious. It's to make it so that to be an American is to be a Christian, and to be a Christian is to be an American. And I'm trying to take back that narrative. I'm trying to undo it. And one of the central things that I try to repeat constantly is that patriotism has no religion, and that's something that I really want to come across in this book. And I've heard from quite a few people as I travel the country doing book talks who have said, reading this book is the first time I, as an atheist or as a non-believer or as an agnostic, whatever they call themselves, it's the first time that I've actually felt like proud to be an American, or like I was an American. And that to me is what I'm getting at and what I'm trying to do.
Awesome. How soon as your book came out, I noticed a post on Facebook by this dickhead, Pastor Locke, who happened to light your book on fire.
Yeah, he did.
Like, what? Well, thanks for the cash, Pastor. Because he obviously would have had to have bought it. What did that like? How did that make you feel?
It was really interesting. So actually, he didn't buy it. I do have to. I sent him a copy of the book because he was trashing it on Twitter, and I kind of jokingly said something like, "Oh, well, maybe I'll send him a copy of the book." And then we sort of got into this exchange, and I was thinking later on the next day, I was thinking, I will send this guy a copy. I can get my books for like a discount. I'll get one. I'll write a nice note in it, a heartfelt note. I'll send it to him, and maybe it'll have a little bit of an impact. And yeah, he got out a blowtorch. Well, first he got his phone or camera or whatever out and filmed himself, and then he got a blowtorch out and torched this book that I spent 8 years researching and writing. And the amount of work that went into it is, I don't know that I could ever communicate it. Just to give you an idea, there are nearly 1,300 citations in there, none of which anybody needs to look at when they're reading the book. It's just to make my argument as airtight as possible.
Sure.
And to make sure that those were airtight, I hired 2 people two different attorneys a year apart and paid them a bounty for every error or misrepresentation that they could find when I'm citing works. So they tracked every single one of these 1,300 down and looked and said, oh yeah, you were a little bit misleading here. And so, and point being, I put a ton of work into this book, and this guy just took up a torch and burned it.
I know.
I mean, in a way, there's so many feelings. There was this morbid fascination, like, I will fully admit there's more than a touch of pride too, right? Like, I wrote something that is so terrifying to this individual that instead of reading it, he's going to try to destroy it, without realizing that you can't destroy the written word just by torching a book.
No.
So I mean, it was a really strange mix of feelings. He also, Locke also said, I want to debate you about these issues, and I'm thinking,
oh wow, really?
Yeah, dude, I wrote a whole book on it, and instead of reading it, you burned it. Like, what? All of the debate points that you want to raise are addressed in the book that you didn't read and just burned. Like, what's the point of that?
Maybe somehow rub the ashes all over him and absorb the information or something. I don't know.
Yeah, gained through osmosis of some kind.
Yeah, that's the word I was looking for.
It was a really bizarre moment in my life. It made national news. It was everywhere for a while, and of course that made the book sales spike. So it was really like the best marketing plan ever.
That's what my friend Prophet of Zod said. He's like, yeah, and there's a great marketing tool right there for you. Yeah. And I'll bet you, I mean, I personally heard at least a couple of people say, oh, Jesus, he's burning the book. I have to have a copy of this book now. So, I mean, a
lot of people said that in response to his Twitter video. I was all tagged on it, so I saw all these responses.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so it was pretty. I mean, it was just a very surreal week of my life when that was happening.
Yeah, I bet. But I think you touched a nerve.
Yeah.
So, do you got any upcoming speaking events that people might want to stop in?
I do. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, New Orleans coming up, Chicago. New Orleans is next week. Chicago is the week after that. I've got a bunch in Southern California. I'm going to be in Iowa at the end of the month for 2 different stops in Des Moines and in Iowa City. Be in Pittsburgh and Philadelphia. I have all this information's up on all my social media. I'm at Andrew L. Seidel, Seidel, on Twitter, Facebook, and
link is below, guys.
Links are below, and you can the dates are all up with a link to where you can find the details, the time and the place as those details roll in. We'll post them. But yeah, the big ones coming, or the most immediate ones, are New Orleans next week, Chicago the week after that, and then Iowa. So that's the rest for January. And Chicago, I'm speaking at the Chicago Humanists, a new group.
Oh, cool.
And they bought 50 books to give out. So if you're one of the first 50 people, if you're one of the first 50 people to get tickets, tickets are free, I think. You get a free book. So that's
a free ticket and free book.
Yeah, so that's kind of a cool bonus.
I'm gonna have to go to Chicago.
Yeah, I don't know. I assume there's still some tickets. Nobody told me it sold out or anything, or I guess it didn't sell out, or that the tickets are gone. Whatever. Anyway, so yeah, check that out too.
You gonna come up to Canada way at any time soon?
I'd love to. I completely rely on local groups to invite me and do all the groundwork. So if anybody wants me to come, you've got to find a host for me. And I'm not saying I need to crash on people's couches. Need a group to set up and get bodies in the chairs, and then I will help organize the rest of it.
All right. Well, I actually work closely with a couple of organizations that do these kinds of things, and will be rebooting my promotion or entertainment group that I started myself.
Cool.
Mostly music related to. I'm a blood donor, and I started a Partners for Life group to honor my father's commitment. He did 532 donations before he passed away.
Wow.
And I just did number 50 on on Wednesday.
Congrats.
And so I started Lifeblood Entertainment, and we were mostly doing music, but I want to branch out into other things. I want to have speakers come up. We can still do concerts and other things as well. We're going to do comedians as well. We're going to start doing that. Now this isn't for a little while, but I do know some other people like Armin Navabi with Atheist Republic and
I
stuff.
love Armin. Yeah.
Yeah, and I do stuff with him quite a bit. So I'm going to do some digging and see, because there's a few speakers I'd love to have come up here.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. I'm happy to go anywhere people want to have me talk, especially if they want me to talk about the book.
What about Faithless Forum? You think you might be there?
I mean, I'm literally, I will go anywhere if it works for the schedule. I've got, let's see what else I've got. I've got Nashville coming up. I'm doing American Atheist Convention. In Phoenix, I'll be in Portland. So I mean, yeah, I mean, it's wide open. I'll go anywhere people want to have me.
All right, I'll do some digging, see if we can get you up here.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, I think if you want, seeing as how we're kind of pressed for time, is there anything else you kind of want to maybe shill or promote before we can bring this to a close and then get into say hello to some of the fans and stuff?
Yeah, I would love for everybody watching to go join the Freedom from Religion Foundation. FFRF, we're the largest atheist agnostic group in North America. We're actually the third largest in the world. And the first largest is in Norway, which they're required under part of their citizenship rules to choose an organization to support, like a church or not a church.
Right.
And the not the church is the biggest organization in the world, technically. So it's not really voluntary. So I don't even know if we should count that. Anyway, so third largest in the world, and we're doing this critical work, we're keeping state and church separate. Basically, we've got two goals. We work to educate and to separate. So to educate the public about what it is to be a non-believer, the issues surrounding that, the discrimination that we face, and then working to keep state and church separate. It's $40 to be a member for a year. It's really critical that people join, and not because I want your $40, because I want your voice joined with ours.
That's, yeah.
So, when I write a court brief and I say we've got 30,000 members, or when I go into a congressional office and say we represent 30,000 members, the bigger that number, the more we are listened to, right? I mean, if you're saying I've got 30 members or 300 or 3,000 or 300,000, that makes a big difference. And so that's really why we want people to join. We need you to join your voice with ours. And I know a lot of people in the atheist arena are not joiners by nature, which I totally get and sympathize with. But that's the reason that you need to be doing it. And we need it now more than ever. And I'll even say this, even if FFRF is not your cup of tea, go join American Atheist or Center for Inquiry or American Humanist Association or Americans United or ACLU, or join them all. But we really all of us need the help now more than ever.
Well, I'm the community advocate for Canadian atheists. So
there you go.
Yeah. My good friend Randolph is the president of it. And I'm also a member of the ACA. So I think now you don't have to be American to become a member of FFRF, correct?
No, we have quite a few international members. You don't even have to be an atheist or agnostic to become a member. We have a few, not many, but a few religious members who really believe in our state church separation work, and they want to support that.
That's encouraging, actually.
Yeah.
Okay, now before we take this off and jump into a little bit of an after party, the other day you made a post on Twitter, which was tell us something that sounds like a lie, but was actually true. And you posted that you peed in Fidel Castro's pool.
I did.
I got to hear the backstory for this.
Yeah, I peed in Fidel Castro's pool.
How did you end up there, first of all?
Yeah, so I was a student, and so I got to go to Cuba on a student visa. Which was this was back when there was all the embargoes and everything. Fidel Castro was still alive, obviously, still kicking it, still running the country. And part of I was on semester at sea. That was my abroad program. And part of our deal was we weren't sure that Castro was going to come speak to this group of American students. They left us kind of hanging, and you have to keep checking back in and we'll tell you whether or not this is going to happen. It turns out it was going to happen, so we all piled on these buses. We went to, I believe, one of the universities in Havana, and Castro came in and talked to us. And it was supposed to be this. He was supposed to talk for like 20 minutes, and then we were going to do Q&A till he got exhausted, basically. They had like a 5-hour block for this. And then after that, he was going to throw this party for us at one of his houses in the hills, his mansions. And he did talk. He talked for 2.5 hours. Ramrod straight on the stage in front of a microphone, no water. Spoke for 2.5 hours. It was just impressive in the sense of a physical feat, especially from an old guy. And then we got to the Q&A, and everybody wanted to be the person to ask a question. Everybody's got all these hard-hitting questions we're going to ask. And some student asked one question, and he answered that question for 3 hours. And that was it. Again, ramrod straight and didn't drink any water. And then afterwards, we got bused to his mansion up in the hills. And, a lot of people were drinking and having fun. There's this really great band. Nobody was going in the pool, but, a few of us thought like, well, what the heck? This is the only time we're going to be partying at Fidel Castro's mansion. Right. I was not among those drinking. Jumped in the pool anyway, and I thought, I'm going to strike a blow for capitalism. And I just let it go.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah. So
stuff that changes color and follow you around, right?
No, it didn't. I was a lifeguard in high school, so I was well aware of that myth and not concerned that was going to be a thing.
Yeah, I remember being really afraid that was going to happen in the public pools.
I used to tell kids that all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've learned, of course, later on that it was all just made up stuff. But
yeah, for the skeptics, we had a lie too. Oh yeah, you don't think it'll work? Yeah, go pour a little ammonia in the pool and see what it does. And like it was. Anyway.
Ammonia in I never thought of that. That's actually a brilliant way to test the water, so to speak. Well, Andrew, thank you, man, for joining me today. I know you're a pretty busy guy, so just taking out some time to chat with me is really cool of you to do that.
Neil, it was a pleasure. Thank you very much for having me on. I really did enjoy it. Thank you.
Thank you. Guys, just a reminder, there is a link below to pick up his great book. I am still loving reading it. And then once I'm done, I'm probably going to run through it again because I listen to it and then I read it and then I listen to it and I read it. And there's so much stuff. I learned so much reading this book that I thought I knew about the whole keeping state and religion apart, but I didn't know as much as I thought I knew. But now I'm getting there. So, Andrew, thanks for the book. And once again, thank you for joining me. And we're going to get into a little bit of an after party here, guys, in a few minutes. So Andrew has to go by 4:05 his time, which is 2:05 my time. So we got a few minutes. If you want to jump in and say hello and say thanks for the work that he does, because he definitely deserves the thanks for what he does, you just give me a message on Twitter and I will send you a link and you can jump in for a few minutes. It won't be a long after party because I do have some things to do this afternoon before I go to my band practice tonight. So. Anyways, thanks again, Andrew. And thanks, everyone, for hanging out with us. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. I know it's a little bit shorter than normal, but we're watching the time here. So until next time, guys, like I always say at the end of these things, like the late, great Christopher Hitchens once said, it's called faith because it's not knowledge. And we'll see you guys next time.
Love that quote.